How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to Roll on Gaming. It's been a minute since we've been back on the airwaves, but there's a lot of cool stuff going on in Star Wars Unlimited right now, and we thought it might be time for us to come back and chat about all the things that we're excited about. I am joined, as always, by my brother and my co-host Corwin. And Corwin, is it time to panic? Are we hitting the panic button with all the crazy piloting things that are happening in the universe right now? It seems like the first year, the first set of the year, right? Sets one, set four, and now set seven have always been dominated by some form of Boba Fett. Are you panicking yet?
I guess, yeah, that's a good observation. I personally am not panicking, but that's also because I've been enjoying space decks myself for the past few sets. So yeah, it feels right at home. But yeah, obviously Boba had a big weekend, and we gotta watch for him now.
Yeah, since you say space decks, it's really one deck in particular. We'll get into a little bit. We'll get into obviously some of the discussion around piloting that's been going on recently in Star Wars Unlimited, and then of course we're right on the heels of the Ashes of the Empire Spotlight deck stream. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But Corwin, we've got to start, of course, with your performance in the most recent PQ out here in Southern California. Uh, First of all, I don't know why you felt the need to go to another PQ. You've already won one. You've already secured your invite to the Galactic Championship. What motivated you to go back and just continue putting beatings on people? Like, what is this? Is this just hubris at the highest level? What's going on here?
Well, I wouldn't classify it that way. I mean, I wasn't actually supposed to go to this event at all, and it sort of came together last minute for me. So I just decided to go. It's been a while since I've played at any sort of competitive event, so I wanted to get back out there and try out some of these new cards and play with the new set and see what people were brewing up. And I did pretty well, so it was a fun time.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the list that took you all the way to the precipice of top eight once again. Uh, Ninth place feels bad, right? There's no getting around it. You hit the bubble. You bubbled out at the highest order, and why Poe, and why did Poe not do what it did last time, which of course was win the whole thing.
Well, that's a high bar to set there, Kevin. But yeah, I mean, I'm not ashamed of ninth at all. I missed top cut on tiebreakers. I was 5-1-1 on the day, and I think I was done in by a round one loss. I dropped my first match to Luke Datavault 2-0, which, people would look at Poe and think, Luke has an advantage because Luke beats up on a lot of the space decks, and that's true. And Poe fights in space in many of the same ways that Luke does. But I liked Poe going into this event because I just liked him to get underneath some of those space decks a little bit. Poe deploys on 5, whereas Luke and Boba deploy on 6. So being able to put a little bit more early pressure, not just into other space decks, but also into ground-based decks, I think was definitely the predominant strategy going in, while still being able to interact in both arenas. And so I felt like it was a really strong choice. I was on it. Our teammate Mike was on it. We both finished with 5 wins on the day. It was a very good showing for the deck.
So that first round loss, obviously, you know, it could go either way. You're really hoping at that point that your round one opponent that beat you goes on to do well because it helps your tiebreakers. Obviously, it wasn't quite enough in this instance, but Luke is one of those pilot decks that it's really just been sort of taking over the spotlight right now in the Star Wars Unlimited meta. What about that deck gave you trouble that the rest of the field didn't?
Well, it wasn't the only Luke that I played. I,
Okay.
I did play another Luke in round 3, and I won that match. I think in round 1, I definitely fell victim to some RNG. I had some troublesome hands. My opponent drew very well, and those things mixed together are usually not a good thing for the person who's on the wrong side of it. So I think that, and also that Luke list in particular was very ready for space. Was running a lot of main deck cards that you might see come out of the sideboard for space matchups. So I think it was just kind of a wrong place at the wrong time type of thing. But Luke in general is a deck I think this that Poe fights well into, and if you can keep space units on Luke's side to a minimum, in the match that I won, I forced Luke to deploy onto the ground both of the games that I won.
Wow.
And I think if you can do that, you have a pretty good chance. So yeah, I don't know that Luke is a super troublesome matchup for me, but it definitely is kind of a back and forth between us kind of fighting to the bitter end in space.
Yeah, I mean, easier said than done, making sure that that Luke doesn't deploy onto one of his ships, because more often than not, you're getting an instant attack off with that Luke because of the Cinta Kaz plot, and if you've already got a damaged unit, you can say bye bye to that unit just because of Luke's ability, and then especially if Luke deploys onto Red 5, then it's pretty much GG's at that point. So
Yeah, Red 5 is a priority target. You don't want to allow that ship to live with Luke on the other side.
what again, we glossed over the fact obviously that you've now played Poe data vault into two different planetary qualifiers. You took one down and you finished ninth with this deck. But the other thing that separates these two decks obviously is the release of a new set. So what, I can see there's a couple set 7 cards mixed in with this list. What changes did A Lawless Time sort of engender with this list, aside, from not just the cards but the strategy as a whole?
Yeah, strategy wise, I think I wanted more interaction than I had in my last deck. My last deck was my set 5 version was basically all gas. It was like I'm an aggro deck and I'm gonna just shove damage down your throat and make you deal with it. This version was definitely more interactive with the air superiorities. I had Hotshot Maneuver in the main deck for a long time. It ended up going into the sideboard for this event, but just a lot of the different ways to interact with the ground. Um, Adding Typho and Queen was something that was sort of a late addition, but was a very very good one. Those cards did a lot of work into some of the other decks that were trying to be aggressive on the ground. Also, as we all know, Queen Amidala is fantastic into control because of her ability to generate multiple units, and so those cards brought a lot of value on the day. And then the set 7 card, I think, is the only one that's in the list, which was very much one of the MVPs of the day. Was Flash the Vents. That is one of my new favorite cards. It is basically like the new heroic sacrifice for Poe, being able to attack with +2, and then if you hit the base, it defeats the unit. Which, if Poe is on the ship, that means he can then use his epic action to deploy to the ground in the same round. So, and it's easier to get that base damage because the card also gives overwhelm, which is pretty awesome. So you can clear a unit, damage the base, and still accomplish what you want to with the card. It's been a great addition, and I really enjoyed using it on the day.
Well, not the only set 7 card, right? Because I see that pesky little Arvel Skeen in your sideboard, right? How
Oh
often how
yes,
often did that come into play?
once I played one Lando deck in the tournament, and it definitely came in and did its job in game 3. That was the match that I ended up drawing, was against a Lando blue, but Arbel came in, blew up Lando's credit on 5 resource turn to prevent him from doing the shenanigans when he flipped the following turn. And so I thought I was in pretty good position to win that game. And I think if we had more time, I would have, but we just ran out of time. And I had like 23 damage on his base. So I was pretty close, but just couldn't quite get there.
Yeah, this list is kind of a nightmare to look at for me because it's got a lot of the green heroism staples that I've come to be absolutely terrified of playing against people like you and Mike. And before I was sort of comforted by the fact that you didn't have things like Queen Amidala and Captain Typho in the list, and now of course bringing them in, adding a threat to the ground as well as space, it just makes me sad. But really the peskiest thing that I think that I've seen a big rise in recently is, what's the deal with Red Squadron Y-Wing all of a sudden being this goated ship? Like I don't know if maybe I just missed the boat, but I feel like every uh aggression heroism deck now opens with Red Squadron Y Wing and is perfectly happy to do it. Obviously Luke and Poe, the space decks, but also Chewbacca, Enfys Nest. It's a beast in Enfys Nest. Um,
Mhm.
literally anything, and I don't know. I don't like it. I'm not a fan in a respectful way, in the sense that like I
Yeah.
recognize its power because it gets me every time.
Yeah, it's an interesting point because I personally am not a huge fan of the card. I really don't like the one attack. It doesn't really allow the unit to trade into other space units very well.
Mm,
But I think it's being run out of necessity right now. We don't have Green Squadron A-Wing anymore. We don't have um, even like my set 5 list was running Anakin's Interceptor just because it had that 2 attack and
yep.
it wasn't a 1/3. And we just don't have those options. I thought about going to the vanilla Alliance X-Wing since it was reprinted
Mm,
in set 7. And I had that in there for a bit, but I ended up taking it out because I needed the red for I can't remember. I think maybe there was something at some point I needed the red for. It definitely has an on attack effect, so it works with hotshot maneuver. But
yep.
I just couldn't I couldn't bring myself to just do a white. Oh, it was Sabine's masterpiece. That's what
Right.
it was.
Right.
Masterpiece being able to get the ping off of the red ship. So yeah, so just not a great opener in my opinion. The 3 indirect certainly adds up, but I would much rather have something that punch back a little bit better.
And I assume that your dire need for the 2 attack ships is what led you to Onaka Gang Starfighter.
Yes, the contraband Starhopper was in there specifically because it was again vanilla 2/3, but at least it was red, so it could combo with masterpiece.
Onaka Gang was the other one. All right, so Contraband. Thank you for correcting me on that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
My
And then Mina and Bonteri was in there as well,
mm,
which is a card that I didn't really play a lot, but that's because I didn't face any Bobas on the day, and I guess, we probably should have led with that. But she was in there to help with Boba matchups, not just to soak some indirect and have a little bit of restore, but also to fight those early ground units, your Cyril Karns, your Allegiant General Prides, etc. So she did end up being super effective, but that's just because I think I didn't get the right matchups for her.
well, so it's interesting you mentioned Boba, right? Because spoiler alert, Boba won the whole event. Went
Yep.
undefeated throughout the event, lost one game over the course of the event. It was Boba Cunning, which was the only
Mhm.
non-Lake Country list that won last weekend, which was interesting. Uh, but after the tournament, you had said that you would have been interested to face a Boba over the course of the tournament. Why is that? Why were you so keen to face the big bad monster of the current meta?
I think this deck has game into Boba,
Okay.
and the testing sort of backed that up. And um, you know, no shade to the winner of this PQ. The guy only lost one game the entire day, not even match, one game. He was undefeated in Swiss, a perfect 14-0 in 7 matches. So powerhouse deck for sure, no question. But there were no other space decks in the top 8. And so I think would have been interesting to see how that would have played out if I had snuck in at number 8 and played him in the first round. I would have been curious to see that. Um, didn't get that chance, but I still would put this deck up against Boba any day. I think we've definitely got play into it.
Well, don't lose your first match, man. Get good. Jeez.
Thank
Uh, um. Well, congrats on ninth place. Worth mentioning our teammate Mike on the same deck finished top 16 as well. So shout out Mike for
Really good
continuing.
performance by Mike too. He had some tough matchups in there that he was able to get through. So it was awesome to see it have so much success on the day.
Yeah, way to go, Mike. Keep playing that oppressive green hero stuff. It's great. Um, but again, we go back to the Boba of it all,
Mhm.
and This is a deck that won 5 PQs in a weekend. Like that's almost unheard of. Like that's going back to the Django days and the Boba One days, and things of that nature. So you know, we now have gone. It's so interesting. We've gotten a lawless time, right? Set seven, the set of multiple aspects and playing splash bases and things of that and all this stuff and celebrating having multiple colors in your deck to now the best deck in format potentially has one color, and it's aggression, because all the things that it can do doesn't need another color necessarily. You're running into a flip turn that is heavily influential in the game state, because you're either getting an immediate attack off with applauded Syntacaz, or you're getting an essential board wipe with applauded Topple the Summit. So I want to get to those cards and all the threats that aggression presents. But I do also want to go back to this idea of not seeing these lower health bases all of a sudden. Again, we were presented with force bases, which we're still seeing a decent amount of, and we were presented with splash bases, which are actually splashed here and there. But high health bases and basic 30 HP bases are making a comeback. Now we're seeing more vanilla bases, we're seeing more Colossus, more Data Vault, and more Lake Country. We're going back to the days of yore when we didn't have options like force bases. So is the health just that important now, because these decks can output so much damage and you have a hard time stopping it?
Yeah, I think, Data Vault, if memory serves, I think is still the most played base right now.
Wow.
Um, 33 HP.
Yep.
Lake Country's rise is largely a product of, as you said, like Boba having access to very good options in villain aggression to begin with, plus 34 HP.
Yep.
So even if you're up against another space aggro, you have more health and you can race in that situation. So yeah, I think that there's a little bit of like people trying to go over the top of each other type situation with the base HP, and when you have options as strong as Boba does, that makes it a lot easier to pull off. And I think that's what we're seeing. And even in the yellow version that won this event with the 30, the indirect adds up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to sort of push and push and push that damage to where you get to check scenarios a lot more quickly, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, and honestly, this might be just inexperience talking, because I didn't go to a PQ like you and sit down for 7 rounds of competitive Star Wars Unlimited in the set 7 environment. But the yellow version scares me more than the Lake Country version, just because, again, all of that indirect damage, when you add in some of the crazier things in there, like Gorilla Soldier, that just I can't stand Gorilla
Mhm.
Soldier. I can't stand it. And then you get, if they get in trouble, they can play bounce, or they can do other things. I'm forgetting, of course, the capital ship that is a 5/6 that does 5 indirect on when played, and I'm never gonna forgive
Like
myself for
Radiant
forgetting.
7.
Yeah, Radiant 7. Yeah, I've seen some lists running Radiant 7, and it's just like, okay, you've been doing damage to my units all game because I can't afford to take all that base damage, and now I can't even race you because they're all lower power because of Radiant 7. It
Mm-hmm.
it it's scary. Now, is it as scary as just having a guaranteed topple the summit every time you deploy? No, probably not, but it's a slower death, and I think that is a little bit more frustrating sometimes. So I don't know what the answer is to deal with, and it's not just Boba, right? It's Luke, who has access to Cinta as well. Both leaders have access, and Poe for that matter, have access to aggressive negotiations, which you included in your list, as we see. What's the answer? Like, what's the answer to aggression right now? Is it, I mean, are we just gonna have to start running Elia Kane and try to snipe these cards out of people's resources? Because I've seen some of that. I've seen some people running that in their lists to try to get rid of these topples, a turn or two earlier.
Mhm.
Um, are we gonna have to ramp up to tear this ship apart before other before the Boba and Luke flip turns? I mean, you're gonna need credit tokens for that because you're not gonna get there in time otherwise. What's the answer to the auto attack action sheet that we're seeing from these leaders?
Well, I think that the action cheating itself, I don't think that's the issue. Otherwise, it would just be a flaw with the entire plot mechanic, which I just don't think is a fair premise.
Yep.
I think it's more so that the interactions that are created when you have these giant pilot leaders that are doing way more damage than any other leader deploy would, that's more of the problem. Like Luke being able to swing for as much as he's swinging when he deploys with Cinta, and he's getting off his, damaging a unit. Um, yeah, it's just there's so much that's going into that one action that's very hard to recover from. And similarly with Boba when he's doing, potentially 16 damage on his flip with the four on the flipping onto a ship and then toppling three each of those units, there's just no other card combination in the game that does that. So it's less so a product of the I think the action cheating itself, and more so about just the way it combos with these crazy pilots that are out there.
So is it a flaw in the piloting mechanic more so than the plot mechanic? Is that sort of where you're going with this?
Well, with Luke, I think that his design is it existed in a world originally where it was much easier to deal with, and now it is not.
Hmm.
There just aren't reliable ways to really deal with Luke because removal cards have rotated out. He's immune to upgrade removal effects. So it's the cases in which you can actually get Luke off a ship outside of just sending three of your own ships on like a suicide run to take him out. Like that's those cases are very rare and narrow. Um, so it just feels like the design doesn't quite match up with what exists in the rest of the card pool right now. That's sort of how I feel about it.
Well, I'll say this, you know, with Luke and Boba being almost an auto attack, an instant attack, I do wonder if we need to start reevaluating the card retaliation,
Yeah.
because retaliation, obviously 5 cost, it's a defeat a unit that has attacked your base this phase. Um, that hits leaders. And if you're gonna take the damage anyway, because you can't get around the Syntacaz, I mean, maybe just ensure the fact that you only take it once, right?
Yeah. That was my theory with this Poe list. My theory behind this Poe list was Luke is going to swing one time, and then on 7R, I'm going to drop Radis. And yeah, unless Luke deploys onto a Saboteur, which I will fight like hell to make sure he doesn't,
Tuh.
then he's going down with me when he flies into my Sentinel, right? And I feel like if I could limit him to one attack, I probably can win from there.
Yep.
If he gets two attacks, I just automatically lose.
Yep.
And that's just sort of how it played out in testing. And the games that I won were the games where either I dropped the Radis or I forced him to deploy to the ground, and that was that.
Yeah, I've been keeping a similar approach with the Chewbacca leader from a lawless time. You know, the one that deploys on 4 resources.
Hmm.
That's one where if they get more than one attack off, you're probably in a bad spot, especially
Yep.
because they're doing damage to your units along the way.
For
But
free, basically.
for yeah, essentially for free. But you know, it's tough sometimes because again, because it's harder to deal with leader units in the current environment, the Voltron strategy is real. Like
Yes.
people are main decking mastery these days. What? Like what? That would have been unheard of pre-rotation. So,
Yeah, because if you can suit up a leader and get those multiple swings off and race essentially on the ground, then that could be viable.
yeah. So, the bottom line I think that we have to examine, and by we I don't mean us because we are not anywhere near the foremost authorities on this topic.
Nope.
You can get your hard-hitting meta-analysis elsewhere if you see fit, but we're glad you're here. So, like and subscribe. Um, but the thing that has to be examined at some point with these cards, because we've been hearing it for a couple weeks now, it's the calls for the ban hammer, right? Are these things a negative play experience or an oppressive play experience, or are they just good? And you know, the the meta won't necessarily be benefited by banning something like Sintakaz or aggressive negotiations or topple the summit. Or is it, I guess the other side to that, right, is not just necessarily the NPE side of it, but
Yeah.
it's the overwhelming prevalence of it in top tier lists, because that was what be inevitably undid things like force throw, that it was just
Yep.
in so many lists at the top of these cuts that it just had to go.
Yeah. I think I'm leaning more towards that side of it. Is if anything is going to happen, it's going to be because of the prevalence of the cards in the top finishing decks, not because of NPEs that they're creating. Although I also acknowledge that sometimes they do create NPEs. Like it is not fun to play against Boba Fett and have him clear your board just because he flipped his leader. Definitely not okay. And that's the thing about these cards, right? Is that they're all doing something that no other card in the game does.
Yep.
There is no other pump that exists like aggressive negotiations in any color. There is no other card that lets you do 3 AoE damage across, X number of units. Like these cards are uncapped, which is one of the reasons why they're so strong. And because they don't exist in any other form, they're going to be played over and over and over again. And they all happen to be in the same color. Cinta, aggressive, top of the summit, they're all neutral red. Any red deck can run them. So red is just going to have a field day because those are some of the strongest cards in the game right now.
Ban aggression. Who says no? Let's move forward with 5 aspects, and that as a side effect would also hit Tobias Beckett. So that might be. Oh no, it wouldn't hit Tobias Beckett.
Now, Tobias isn't red by nature.
That's true. It would hit the aggressive negotiation side of Tobias Beckett, but
It would.
it would hit Saw Gerrera, which nobody's actually asking for Saw Gerrera to be hit. So, um, well, we've done enough talking about the past. Let's talk a little bit about the future, and we've got to talk a little bit about what was discussed this week when there was a fun and exciting FFG live stream that had everything to do with Ashes of the Empire. So let's take a look at some of the spotlight specific cards that we saw. We'll go quickly through these because you've already seen them by now, and they look really fun. So let's start with the Emperor Palpatine leader. This is the villainy spotlight leader. Emperor Palpatine has an action to exhaust that chooses an exhausted friendly unit. You can give an advantage token to it for each other friendly unit. Now, an advantage token, for those who didn't see, is a +1/+0 token that goes on your units, that is removed when the unit either attacks or defends. So it's a one-use +1/+0. So if you're attacked while you have advantage tokens on them, those go away. But it can be a way to just have bigger swings or beef up your Sentinels one time. Um, and that would be very interesting to see how those are applied. Palpatine is apparently the advantage token leader because he deploys on 7 as a 4/8 and on attack, similar to his action ability. You can choose another exhausted friendly unit. If you do, give an advantage token to it for each other friendly unit. So this could add up if you have a lot of units on the board. You could be giving your exhausted units like +4, +0, just by attacking, things of that nature. Obviously, again, those will go away after one use, either in attack or defense. But pretty interesting mechanic.
Yes, definitely. And the advantage tokens are gonna definitely mess with some math and some breakpoints. So I like the concept of this. It'll make gameplay back and forth and unit combat a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and again, by the nature of Palpatine's leader side, you're the first unit you play in the game is going to come in
Yep.
exhausted. So you just,
Yep.
no matter what happens, as long as you don't take the initiative right away, you've got a +1 +0 on your unit immediately, right off the bat. And then, going forward from there, it's just going to scale depending on how many units you actually have on the board. So interesting stuff there. We'll have to see how effective that ends up being. Let's stay with the Palpatine Spotlight deck to start. And then this was shocking to me. A Darth Vader that isn't a legendary. Not only that,
Yeah.
but it's not even a rare. It's a special rarity that you can find in the Spotlight decks. What is happening here? So this is of course only villainy, 5 cost, 4/6, shielded, and when this unit is ready, it gains Sentinel. So you play the unit, give it a shield. When it readies up at the start of the next phase, or after the regroup phase, now you've got a 4/6 shielded Sentinel that can be a Sentinel for as long as he's ready. Seems decent.
These spotlight decks recently have had a history of putting very good and playable sentinels in them. So this is potentially one more of those options coming through. And the shielded makes it even better. So I think this looks like a pretty good card to me. Um, and even if the sentinel isn't online right away, you know, a well timed Vader is going to definitely be hard to deal with on the following turn.
Absolutely. And I'm just glad that heroism didn't get one of these darn Sentinels because it's been all heroism lately, from Lando to Captain Typho to Obi-Wan. I'm sick of it. Sick of it. Moving right along. There is no conflict. 2 cost cunning villainy upgrade. It gives +2/+2, and when played, return any number of other upgrades on attached unit to their owner's hands. Now, this is an interesting one because this is a way for you to defeat upgrades. So, in theory, you could play this on your opponent's units, including a, a a unit that has Luke Skywalker or Boba Fett on it, or Poe,
Mhm.
or whatever. But then you're giving them +2/+2 to do that. Now, is that better than the +4/+5 that you'd get from Luke Skywalker? Yeah, absolutely. But it's still a buff. So the usage case for this is going to be very intriguing. Obviously, best case scenario gets rid of a condemn or something along those lines, a kill
Mhm.
switch maybe, um, or a shadow of Stygian Prime. But worth noting, it does go back to their hands, so they could always just replay it, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, this could potentially do some work on token upgrades, right?
Yep,
So shields and the new advantage tokens, even they wouldn't return to hand. So I could see it being pretty good there. But yeah, some very niche use cases for for those pilots or like bigger upgrades that you would want to essentially reduce down with this card.
great art though, incredible artwork. Loving
Mhm.
all the Vader artwork that we've seen so far, and can't wait to see more. And then we have a big triangle. I love my big triangles. This is the Executor. Cunning, villainy, 8 cost 512 Imperial Vehicle Capital Ship. Shout out Capital Ships. This unit gets +1/+0 for each upgrade on other friendly units. When played, give an advantage token to each other friendly unit. So already it's coming in. Let's say you have 3 units on board at 8 resources. It becomes an 8/12 and gives everybody else +1/+0. Um, First thing I thought of when I saw this was uh, Protect the Pod. 4 cost 12 damage. Let's get it. Big fan. Um,
Yeah.
I've been playing around with Protect the Pod a lot in a Krennic deck that I've been messing around with. But this feels like it could scale pretty aggressively given the right set of um, what's the word I'm looking for? Circumstances. There you go. Words are hard. Um, especially in a Palpatine deck that's giving out multiple potentially advantage tokens around. I don't know. Executor could be nice.
Yeah, I think in a Palpatine strategy, go wide strategy, I could see this making sense, but it's not like a super impactful when played effect. So the the 8 is going to be it's going to be a little tough to swallow. But I could see it potentially with a new Palpatine strategy.
Yeah, the one thing I love the artwork. The one thing though is because of the foreground to background perception of the ship, it makes the stem look a little longer there. It does look like a mouse pointer.
Yeah.
So it's just, it looks very Microsofty. But I digress. And then finally, Moff Jerjerrod. This was revealed earlier in the day on the TCG Player interview video with some of the designers, Ryan and Tyler, and then they showed it off again in the live stream. 2 cost command villainy, 1/3 Imperial Official. If you would create a number of tokens, you may defeat this unit. If you do, create twice that number of tokens instead. So combine that with Executor, and all of a sudden you've got an 11/12 instead of an 8/12, something along those lines.
Yeah,
Seems
and it's
decent.
any token too, so you can double up on credits, shields, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Very interesting card.
The worst thing that I thought of when I saw this was that some upsetting person, probably named Mike, will put this in a heroism deck, play it on 4, and play Amidala on 5, and create 4 spy tokens that the queen can just defeat repeatedly, and it made me very sad.
Yeah, but are you really gonna pay out of aspect penalties for that effect? I don't know.
I mean, paying an extra 2 to get, at least another round or 2 of Queen Amidala being alive. It's not the worst thing I've ever thought of. I've thought of some dumb stuff in my time, but I don't hate it. I mean, I would hate playing against it, but I don't hate it. Um.
Yeah.
Anyway, this could prove to be very interesting, provided it's not immediately defeated as soon as it hits the table. Let's talk about the next Luke Skywalker, which bears a striking resemblance to Set 1 unit Luke Skywalker.
Indeed.
This is a blue heroism Force Jedi Rebel leader. When a friendly unit's attack ends, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, heal 1 damage from that unit. So things with large HP can take 1 less damage, essentially, if you're attacking into a unit, which is kind of cool. But really, the spice from this leader comes on deploy. It's another 7 cost deploy. I like the fact that both spotlight leaders are 7 deploy. I think that's great. This is a 6 power, 7 HP leader unit. And when a friendly unit's attack ends, you can heal 2 damage from that unit or from your base. That last part is the part that I hate. I don't like the amount of healing that this Luke Skywalker has at its disposal, and it makes me very sad.
Yeah, I mean, this the fact that this isn't capped to like once per round
Nope,
is definitely interesting.
sure isn't.
And obviously it works with him too, right? So yeah, I think you could definitely see this kind of getting out of hand quickly, essentially giving every unit on your board restore two. Um, seems good. Seems good.
Yeah, I mean, home one gave everything restore one, but it was an 8 cost space unit that wasn't even a leader.
Yep.
Yikes!
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they know how to make cracked loot cards in this game. So
Boy,
this
boy, do they!
you just got to get to 7 though is the thing. That's
Yeah,
not easy to do right now.
yeah. There's no guarantee that you get there in the current state of playing Star Wars Unlimited. So that will be tricky, but you'll probably be able to get there in a spotlight deck battle,
There you go.
which is
Yeah.
nice. So speaking of Luke, we have Luke's Jedi lightsaber. It's a 3 cost vigilance heroism upgrade, gives +3/+3 attached to a non-vehicle unit, and if attached unit is Luke Skywalker, he gains Sentinel. Just, just, just. I don't know. I'm sad. I I'm so traumatized by the vigilance command heroism in our play group that I see this and I just cry. I don't want any part of this. Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. This would be a decent card even without the Sentinel text. Like you could play this on another non-Luke unit and feel pretty good about +3/+3. So I like it.
Yeah, I mean you're essentially playing this now when you play mastery because you're not usually
Mhm.
paying 4 for it because you're putting it on a unique unit. So if you're paying 3 for a 3/3 now do it and give it Sentinel. It makes me sad. But it'll probably be a really good card, so make sure to get the Spotlight deck. Yay, hooray. Okay. Moving right along to Leia Organa. Speaking of Vigilance Heroism, this is a 3
Yes.
cost 3/4 Rebel Official with another new ability, new keyword support. The support keyword is sort of the theme of the Luke Skywalker Spotlight deck. Support is when you play this unit, you may attack with another unit, and it gains this unit's other abilities for this attack. So obviously not its power and HP, but its printed abilities. And Leia's printed abilities outside of support is an on attack, of course. You may deal 1 damage to this unit. If you do, heal 2 damage from your base, which is great because now Luke Skywalker can restore 4 right when he deploys, which is so cool and awesome, and we love that for us.
So support is probably the thing that stands out the most to me about everything we've seen today. This mechanic looks really fun. It looks like it's going to create for some very cool interactive points in the game. Obviously, it's going to increase, tempo and action efficiency, but it'll mean that some of these cards that don't necessarily have your like when played effects or like immediate board impacts. I mean, this basically is support basically is that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that finding the right sort of combinations and it'll be limited to set 8 just in terms of what support options are available, but I really think this is a cool mechanic. I'm very excited to see how it plays out in practice.
This is breathing new life into vanilla units.
Yeah.
Like, this is breathing new life into things like Knight of Ren and Masasi, whatever the 3 cost 4/4 is in Command Heroism, right? And even something as simple as like a Atreus Acolyte 2 cost 2/4. Obviously, that's a villainy card, and this is a heroism card. But if you have cards that have support on them, you don't feel so bad paying less for a bigger set of stats because you know it's going to be able to do something when it attacks if you play a unit with support. So like
Mhm.
I think again because I'm so villainy coded, my mind goes straight to Vandor range troopers, right? 4 costs for a 4/6, but it has no abilities. Now all of a sudden you give it an on attack by playing a support uh, unit the next round. Now you're feeling pretty darn good about that Vandor range troopers, at least for a round.
Yep. Yeah, I could see that for sure. And I also think that because these support cards are, that all of the effects are taking place, when the card is played, it's not, and you could say this is a good thing or a bad thing, but it allows you to take these actions, these specific sort of ability actions on cards without interruptions from your opponent, which can create for some really interesting kind of like combo effects, or like, you know, I mean, just think about like stacking on attack abilities on a unit, right?
Hmm.
Like two or three. I mean, pretty interesting stuff there. So I just think that this will open up some very interesting game space for us to explore.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting the sort of accepted and common turn structure, because now think of this Leia in a heroism deck going into the second round. Second round, usually it's attack with your unit, make sure to get the attack in, then play your second unit. Now it's reversed. You play the
Yep.
unit and then attack right away. It's going to make for faster games, which,
Hmm.
however you feel about that, we'll see if we'll see what ends up happening there. But cards that have the initiative in mind are going to become that much more sought after.
I was
Uh,
about to say that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Let's Call It War is going to be a little bit more popular. Zeton Maj is going to be a little bit more popular. I'm very interested to see what Colonel Yularen does with a lot of support cards, whether it's in this set or down the line. So
Yeah.
this will be a very interesting mechanic. I agree. I think this is one, and especially again if you have units with a lot of advantage tokens on them, that you need to make sure that attack gets off before they have to defend and lose the advantage tokens. It's a great way to do it.
Yep.
Speaking of lots of advantage tokens, what a great segue by me. Han Solo, 4 cost aggression heroism 3/7 rebel official. He's an official. He's an official. I don't see it. Uh, he is a 3/7 saboteur. When played, deal 3 damage to this unit. Give 3 advantage tokens to a unit. So can give it to himself, and he's a damage 3/4 plus 3. So he's a 7/4 on 4, 6/4. Math is hard. Or he can give it to something that hasn't attacked yet. The possibilities, they are endless.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And also Saboteur not irrelevant. I mean, given the amount of shields that we are already seeing in these first previews,
Mm-hmm.
it feels like we might be on our way to increasing the value of Saboteur even more. And so, not lost on me that this card has it. But yeah, you could create a pretty powerful unit on play. It just kind of sits there otherwise. So it's
Yep.
like I think it might be better to stack the advantage tokens on something else, but um, still, uh, creative possibilities here with good old Han.
Yeah, and if there's some way to give this ambush, then you could certainly at least stack it on uh, on
Yeah.
Han, and then now you're ambushing for 6 on 4 resources, which is kind of wild.
Yep.
Let's move on to Anakin Skywalker, which is one of the craziest cards I've ever seen, because it's a dude that's dying that has 6 power.
Yeah.
Explain it to me. This is a 5 cost heroism unit. It's the polar opposite of the Darth Vader. The Darth Vader was a 4/6. This is a 6/4. Force Jedi hidden with Saboteur. Speaking of Saboteur, and when played, give a shield token to another friendly unit. Like, this is gross.
Yeah.
This is really really good.
Yep. Not a bad card. And and obviously the hidden will mean that it's going to be protected for a turn, assuming no direct damage effects. Um, I could see this. I could see this maybe seeing some play in certain situations.
Agreed. Agreed. Yeah, I think that, again, like you said, Saboteur stonks. and 6 power saboteur stonks on 5 resources. I mean,
On 5R, yeah.
you're gonna be
It's
able
pretty
to
good.
take out some sentinels with this, or
Mhm.
some shielded units, I guess. But really, this will take out that pesky Lando sentinel. So, uh,
An interesting design to your point that they made it exact opposite of Vader, so they could essentially trade with each other on the
yeah,
following turn.
absolutely. Moving right along to some non-spotlight specific cards, we have the Forest Patroller, 3 cost 3/4 command villainy Imperial Trooper with Overwhelm and Restore 1. Again, the Overwhelm probably comes into play if there are advantage tokens being handed out. Nothing crazy here, but it is nice to see Restore and Villainy. I'll take that.
And the Imperial keyword.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it'll be interesting to see if that resurfaces in this set as well.
I certainly hope so. We've seen a decent chunk of Imperial stuff already. I've been playing a lot of Agent Callus, and the Forest Patroller has the exact same traits as Agent Callus, which could mean a nice little C3PO drop in. Play this,
Mm.
attack with C3PO. Now you've got a 4/5 overwhelm on turn 3, or on 3R, as you like to say. Doesn't feel horrible. So that's out there. You could also be giving this advantage tokens with Palpatine, as I'm sure you'll be want to do. Speaking of Imperials, here's Moff Gideon, 3 cost 2/5 command villainy Imperial official Sentinel. And when defeated, you may return a non-unique Imperial unit from your discard pile to your hand. Really would have been useful with those Dark Troopers from set 2, but I digress. We'll put it in Eternal.
Well, you've got the Imperial Dark Troopers now, right? The
Mm-hmm.
3/3. So that could work.
It sure could. Yeah, this Moff Gideon just being a 3 cost 2/5 Sentinel, I on its own, I'm pretty happy with.
Yeah, not bad.
And then the Helix Starfighter, which is just a 4 cost cunning 3/3 underworld vehicle fighter. It's a space unit. When played, if an opponent controls a space unit, you get a shield on this unit. Otherwise, you get 2 advantage tokens on this unit. So you're paying 4 for a 5/3 one shot, or 4 for a 3/3 shielded. I've seen worse.
Yeah, both are perfectly okay.
I've paid 4 for worse. Let's put it that way.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. And finally, last but not least, the card that's going to give me nightmares in set 8. That is, of course, R5D4. It's a 3 cost aggression heroism. Why with the aggression? Why? 3 cost aggression heroism ground unit. It's a droid. It is a 3/4. It does have support, and that is relevant because on attack, defeat all upgrades on the defending unit. So there you go. All your advantage tokens, your Chewbacca's, your masteries, your craving powers, your uh multiple experience tokens on your axe woves, all gone. See you later. Bye bye.
Yeah, I mean, we had this effect already with Kit Fisto. Kit Fisto's Ether Sprite, which by the way was doing some major work for me in the PQ.
Yeah, I bet.
Um, but having it on this card as well with a built-in action compression is pretty nice.
Yeah.
Pretty nice.
Yeah. I was thinking that Cadal Conics would be the new hotness, and then R5D4 shows up and says, hold on there. This is
Also a
my
droid.
turf now. Yeah.
Wondering if we can maybe get some droid synergy at some point.
We had droid synergy in the form of Invisible Hand, and that was sort of a flash in the pan.
Yeah, I guess I should have specified to say
Right.
hero droid synergy.
We don't need any hero droid synergy. Well, you got all the hero droid synergy you needed back in Star Wars Destiny with chopper droids. That's all we needed.
Fair enough.
But we do need an R2 leader just for you.
Yes, please.
Do you have a favorite of these reveals before we sign off for the episode?
Ooh, man. Um, eh, in terms of the specific cards, I mean, I I like the support cards. I like this card here. I like Leia. Um, I think just the mechanic in general is really doing it for me.
Yeah,
So I have to kind of put my stock in that. But it's always great, Kevin, to see a Vigilance, Luke Skywalker, hero leader in the game. Hard to argue with our boy Luke here.
I don't like it. I'm not a fan. I can't wait for that to be abused in our local play group by you and some other people. Mine's obvious. It's Darth Vader. I could have made the argument for Executor because it's a big triangle and I love my big triangles. I'm going to collect every variant of this Executor if I can. But I mean, a Darth Vader that I don't have to chase as a legendary, that's a win.
Yeah,
So,
super awesome that it's in the spotlight, and also awesome that the spotlight decks are, you know, very iconic characters in an iconic portion of the original trilogy. Definitely digging that.
absolutely. I loved how they explained sort of that the spotlight decks were the end of Return of the Jedi, and then once you open booster packs, you opened up the world into after Return of the Jedi, which was a really cool explanation and a good
Very
way to
cool.
sort of theme things. But that we're right up against an hour. That's going to do it for us here at Roll On Gaming. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in. Thank you for listening. Thank you for letting us ramble a bit about the greatness of my brother and his Podex. And we hope as excited as we are about what's to come in Star Wars Unlimited. You know, we're continuing to explore new things, new ways of playing. So we'll hopefully have some content on that coming out a little bit later. But in the meantime, thanks for tuning in. Let us know what your favorite cards are from Ashes of the Empire that you've seen so far. Be sure to like the video if you enjoyed it. That helps us out a ton. And as always, thanks very much. And we will see you in the next one. Take care.